Sports Action, Tony Palmer.
Welcome to Goodyear Sports Action's coverage of this big final in the CEBE International Offshore Series. It's another 100-mile course, and we're starting right off Princess Wharf here in downtown Auckland. We've had three very interesting races in this series so far. Let's briefly review them in order. The first was in the Hauraki Gulf, based out of Stanley Bay on the north side of Whangaparoa Peninsula. It was a flat, calm day featuring new boats and breakdowns. EIT had a new inboard look. High Nordics crew from Australia cruised around making progress largely by default. Their compatriots were pumped up with Stefan Shampoo's first outing as the Pink Monster hogged the limelight. Millier Group was at less than full tilt but looking solid and reliable near the front. Then it all turned sour as breakdown followed breakdown. First Jesse James stopped. Then Stefan Shampoo became a spectator craft. EIT had engine problems. Stevenson Express didn't last much longer before needing a tow. And Peter Turner's Sleepyhead completed the major exit of top competitors. All of which left Lockwood in second place and right in the hunt for series points. The tiny 5-metre outboard Chindit took advantage of the attrition with third place. And Millier Group started the series in winning fashion by sitting slightly off the pace and pouncing when breakdowns eliminated the opposition. So 5 top entries eliminated and a full point score for Millier Group here. Race 2 moved to the south side of Whangaparoa Peninsula, was based out of Gulf Harbour and run in a 25-knot southwesterly. It was much more lively in these fresh conditions with 1.5 metres of swell. Chindit was once again about to kill some giants. Jesse James was being driven hard as Tebbs and Grant tried to make up for the previous week's failure. Horn and Brooks and EIT were also desperate to make up lost ground and this time seemed well on the front-end pace. The jewel of the race was between Jesse James and Stuart McGrath's Millier Group, the latter being much quicker second time out. EIT was handling these conditions far better as an inboard than it ever would have previously as an outboard rig. Stefan's crew were out of luck again. This time they broke a gearbox. Roger Puttock's Stevenson Express lost steering and became unsafe to drive on lap 2. After Jesse James was also parked in the marina, Mark Stewart and Peter McGrath were left once again to win as they liked in Millier Group. 2 wins from 2 starts meant a comfortable series points lead with 2 races to go. Millier Group was suddenly series favourite. EIT took second and Lockwood added this third place to the previous week's second and moved to second place overall. As is always the case in offshore racing, whether it be a marathon or a series like this, it's reliability that will win it, not just the speed. Now for race 3, the whole circus moved down to Thames for a 100-miler in the Firth. And as if our Aussie mates hadn't had enough bad luck already, Stefan Shampoo's crew were in trouble again, even before the event began. This little slip off the trailer didn't do too much serious damage, but it did cost them 20 minutes race time, effectively ruining their chances.
One big hammer.
Millier Group's owner was overseeing his crew very closely to ensure sensible tactics prevailed. The conditions were calm enough for outboards to shine, and Stevenson Express led for the first lap quite easily. The best dice of the race was between Sleepyhead and Chindit. They battled throughout for minor placings and major series points. Stefan Shampoo eventually joined the fray and immediately started making up places. EIT's reprieve from breakdowns proved short-lived, and once again Horn and Brooks exited early. Jesse James won the race for Tebbs and Grant, paying back 2 weeks of tireless work in preparation after 2 previous failures. With a fantastic run at over 90-mile-an-hour average, Stefan Shampoo was driven to a 4th-place finish, proving she'll be an awesome rough water boat when fully sorted. Despite losing 1 engine with a blown water hose, Millier Group was gently coaxed to the finish line as the boss sat nervously above. Stewart and McGrath retained their series lead with a fortunate third place. So Mark Stewart and Peter McGrath would seem to have the CEBE International Series all sewn up in this very reliable cat. Now, weather conditions on the Hauraki Gulf today, they're forecasting 20 knots from the south and a vague sort of forecast of between 1 and 2 metres of swell. So it could be rough and it could be very rough. Let's meet the leading competitors for today's big final. Millier Group is a 9-metre Linda cat with twin inboard 350 cubic inch Chevys. Stewart and McGrath have the series lead now after 2 wins and a third place.
It's built light but it's strong. We're running very small gear compared to everyone else. Our leg sizes, propellers, everything is so much smaller. Our engine's actually even smaller as well. But because of the boat design, it seems to be working and we've got a fairly good boat out of it.
Jesse James is a 9.1 metre Linda cat powered by 2 372 Chevys. Tebbs and Grant had breakdowns in the first 2 and won the third.
We've had a bit of bad luck in the first 2 races, and luckily our luck changed and we had a win down at Thames, which gave the boys a bit of encouragement.
EIT's a 9.7 metre Scott Robson cat converted from triple outboard to double 372 inboard power. Horn and Brooks have also had 2 DNFs and a second place. Stefan Shampoo's a brand new stained 38 aluminium cat powered by 2 900 horsepower Detroit diesels. McCarroll, Wright and Ackery have had 3 bad races.
This is the latest technology in the world. This is really state-of-the-art boat, and it's not a toy. I mean, this is really a proper race boat. This will be what the best boats in the world are doing. It will do.
Stevenson Express is the world's fastest offshore triple outboard. It's a Scott Robson design running 3 Mercury 2.4 V6s. Puttock and Luke also have 1 from 3.
We've had a few little problems in not finishing and only minor things, 50-cent items letting us down. But we've got it all sorted out now. And today we're going to give it a good go.
Some of these high-powered giants had attracted plenty of public attention wherever they went, and especially when seen in perspective out of the water. The Queen Street Parade before the final was no exception. Once again, a large crowd of spectators were on hand to watch a spectacular start as the strong field made Auckland's inner harbour look like the inside of a washing machine. This was right off the wharfs in downtown Auckland, and there would be 2 passes under the harbour bridge pylons before heading out to the Gulf for the first major lap. The big guns trio of Millier, Jesse James and Stefan Shampoo were very quickly away, leaving the rest in their agitated wake. Millier Group's huge points lead meant this would simply be a race for salvaged reputations, as the other big boats capable of challenging made up for failures and breakdowns in the previous 3 series races. Those in the hunt for series places were too small to foot it with the biggies, apart from Jesse James, which could still take second overall. The forecast of 25-knot winds and unpredictable chop meant some of this expensive machinery was bound to get broken, and some teams were undoubtedly going to be disappointed before this battle was over. It quickly became apparent that Stewart and McGrath would go for broke here. They knew their points lead was safe and were at last free from conservative tactics in their last race aboard Millier Group. Ross Tebbs and Ken Grant had once again been working late nights between races on Jesse James. Then just hours before start time had discovered a bent pushrod in one engine. Furious work had fixed it, and they were in second place, catching Millier, fingers crossed. Mark Stewart was uncharacteristically running all out in the lead, pulling more revs on the twin Chevy V8s than we'd heard all series. The reason for the pace was this prestigious NZ1 sign on the front of his boat. Points were at stake for the national title and thus the number, if not for this particular series. And Ross Tebbs wants that number on Jesse James just as much as series points. So Jesse James was getting a good thrashing too, as they moved up the East Coast beaches at over 100 miles an hour. well, the throttle man on Stefan Shampoo was doing his job very precisely, keeping a limit on the revs of the two big diesels as the props left the water and re-entered. This was a slow but sensible wind-up to full pace for the Aussies, who were in third place and happy to wait for the bigger swells that would suit their hull just fine. Something was bound to give at such frantic pace, and before they'd reached the turn toward Rakino Island, Mark Stewart and Peter McGrath were aware all was not well with Milia's engines, and they decided they'd better have a look before the noises became too expensive.
It was very disappointing because it was our sort of water. We were running very well. We were in front, and it was shaping up to be a very good race. The rest of the boys went too far behind, so it could have been very interesting. What happened, at present, we pulled a plug out as we started losing revs on one engine, and we pulled a plug and it had been damaged, so something had hit it. So we decided to bail out before it was too late.
So Milia's race was over, and reliability was again in fashion. High Nautic, as it had done throughout the series, just kept on plugging away. The Harris Cat and twin outboard Yamahas are ideally suited to these conditions, as long as the pace isn't too hot, that is. In contrast, Roger Puttick's Stevenson Express was not happy at all in the swell. The much shallower Scott Robson hull and triple V6 outboard rig is quicker than anything in flat water, but slows up immediately in any more than about a metre of swell, especially when it's side on. They were fourth approaching Rakino Island. Two miles ahead, Jesse James was stopped, but not finished. Ace mechanic Ken Grant was feverishly trying to stem the flow of oil in the engine bay.
We were going for broke today, and we started the race, and we had a tint of oil smell in the boat as we were going around Oil Headwood, so we were aware that we had a slight problem. I was tempted to keep going. Ken wanted to stop, so we stopped. We opened the hatches. We had a massive amount of oil. There was oil everywhere. He made a very quick diagnosis to a damaged rocket cover gasket. That took us, I think, about 8 minutes.
After which they still hoped to rejoin the race. This meant that the Australians and Stefan Shampoo had taken the lead, and they looked like hanging on to it unless Jesse James was able to reel them in on the final lap. All of these breakdowns were good news for Paul Sinclair and Terry Goldsborough in Chindit. Of all the races here, they deserved the most credit, as they and the little giant-killing boat took another horrendous battering. The big boats are like a homely lounge settee compared to this bucking mini, and they were already up to 5th place. Chindit's great rival this year has been Peter Turner's Batmobile lookalike Sleepyhead. This time it was in big trouble as rescue launches approached and Turner and his navigator investigated the damage. They knew it wasn't steering, but they didn't know why yet. Ken Grant had by now fixed the oil leak in Jesse James, and they were back in. But they would have needed about 130 miles an hour to catch Stefan for the lead. They gave it a good go anyway. Sleepyhead was by this stage out of the race and the extent of the damage discovered. The entire transom had broken away under the raw power of its outboard V8, and they were worried they might lose the whole engine.
We fell off the side of a big wave, and as we
started to get back up again, we broached heavily to port again, and we couldn't steer it straight. I thought maybe our trim tabs had locked down and was pushing over one way, so we decided to stop and have a check, and noticed that the motor was about to drop off. My main concern was to stop the power head from dropping into the tide, so we got anything we could and tied around the power head to keep it back into the boat. As you can see, it wouldn't have taken much more to let it rip off.
Roger Puttock and Gordon Luke had stuck to their task despite the unsuitable conditions for Stevenson Express, and it was paying off as they moved up to third place with the city almost in sight. Graham Horn and Wyn Brooks were out of luck again and could only look toward next season's series in the transformed EIT mover. Calico Jack was a late but short-lived entry, seemingly afflicted with smoker's cough. Finally, the huge publicity and ballyhoo surrounding Stefan Shampoo seemed justified. This is a world-class boat built with World Championships in mind, and when it goes, it is indeed impressive. Its handling, especially in rough water, is superb, belying the outright speed it can maintain over long offshore distances. It's just a shame its shakedown process had to be so public, with one good race from 4 in New Zealand. Stefan Shampoo was now within sight of the inner harbour, the wharves, the crowd and the champagne. 4 miles behind, but running reliably, Jesse James was within grasp of second place, not just for the race, but for overall points in the CEBE series. Ken Grant's repairs had held, and Ross Tebbs had kept the hammers down in the full-on chase for the lead they were denied, all for the sake of a $5 gasket. But for my money, the loudest applause should be saved for these two. Paul Sinclair and Terry Goldsborough have finished every race in the tiny 5-metre Chindit, and here they were still pounding away at 10/10 despite the choppy surface, 5th in the final race, and an amazing 3rd place overall for the series. So maximum points in the final race for Stefan Shampoo, showing true class with a race average speed of over 90 miles an hour. For the first time, Stefan Ackery can hog the limelight he enjoys so much and rephrase the traditional winner's speech in words more suited to the successful businessman that he is.
I don't think you can describe the feeling you have when you win. If you could get your bank manager, put him in the boat, make him win a race, then go and see him in the morning, he'd give you anything you want.
And Mark Stewart is equally elated. He didn't finish today's race and the boat will be sold, but he is the winner of the main prize, the CEBE and Union Shipping International Series Trophy.
It's been brilliant. We've had very good coverage. Everything's been great. We've had all the sponsors have been brilliant. Everything's been very good.